What's going on, guys? Evan Centopani here. Today, we're here to talk about something a little bit different. We're not here to talk nutrition or training or bodybuilding competition or any of that stuff. Actually, what I want to talk about is this power rack. Since this whole pandemic started, the whole coronavirus started to spread and gyms started to close, a lot of people started trying to find ways to train at home because they didn't have access, and a lot of you watching probably still don't have access to a gym. I know the state in which I live, all the gyms are still currently closed. So a lot of people trying to come up with ways to train at home. And a lot of you have seen this, and I've been tagged in all sorts of stuff on social media, people tagging me in builds that people have done, whether it's out of steel. I've even seen quite a bit of stuff made out of wood. It's been really awesome to see. So thank you for everyone tagging me. Thank you for watching this. It's been cool to see all the ingenuity, people, getting their hands dirty, making their own stuff. I think it's really something awesome. If nothing else, I think this whole thing has taught us the value of being self-reliant, whether it's as a nation or as individuals. And as bodybuilders, it's certainly awesome to be as self-reliant as you can also. Not all of us have room. If you see what I'm working with, I've got like a 20 foot by 20 foot space. It's nothing huge, but I am lucky to have this little space. Not everybody has the space. Not everyone has the funds to allocate toward this, so I totally understand. I'm a little bit cheap myself, and that's why I tried to do as much of this as I could myself to save money, but I loved the process as well. I've been getting all sorts of emails, direct messages, people asking, are the dimensions for this posted anywhere? Could you tell me how you did it? So on and so forth. So the other day I sat down, I did a scale drawing of the rack, with all the measurements written in. There will be an accompanying article, but also I wanted to make a video to go along with it because, sometimes just looking at a drawing, maybe some things get lost. So I figured I could kind of go over the measurements, kind of tell you guys how exactly I did this, and hopefully shed some light on it, and maybe some of you will feel inspired to take a crack at it. So first off, let's just start with the overall footprint of this thing. So what I've got is front to back, 48 inches on the dot, right? What I used for this was 3x3 steel. I believe it's 3/16 thickness. It's fairly heavy. You could probably easily get away with 1/8 and be fine. 1/16 I think would probably be a little on the lighter side. This is maybe a little bit overkill. I think the racks in the gym that I train at, the benches, the racks or whatever are made with 3x3 1/8, but don't quote me. 48 inches deep for width, okay? We've got 48.5 inches, but I've got feet on the bottom so that I could bolt it to the floor. So if we take those into account, we've got a total of 52.5 inches because the plates that I used at the bottom are 3 inches wide by 7 inches long. Because if the rack is 3 inches out of 7, right, that leaves us with 4 inches. So 2 inches to overhang on each side is, just about right to put a bolt to anchor it to the floor. So for height, we've got 7 feet exact, 84 inches. So that's the overall dimensions of the rack. You can, as you may or may not be able to see, I only have so much height to work with in this basement, all right? To the rafter, it's just over 91 inches. So I couldn't really go that much taller. It would have been cool, maybe to put a pull-up bar across, things like that, but I'm a little bit limited on height. But you could certainly make it whatever size you want. What I basically worked off of when determining the width was the bar, right? This is a Texas Power Bar, and from inside the collar to inside the collar, I've got about 52 inches. So you're certainly not going to make the rack wider than that because you're not going to be able to get the bar in the rack. Keep that in mind. Depth, of course, you go as deep as you want, as deep or as shallow as you want. You kind of want a certain amount of depth so that you've got room once you unrack the bar to step back and be comfortable and certainly not, worry about hitting this. So inside, I've got 42 inches. So this piece, 42 inches. Now, what you will see is that this upright, cross piece, and the cross piece, they're all welded together. So you have one side, the second side, and then there's these cross pieces, which I welded plates to, drilled so that I could bolt to it. Now, don't go making something that's bigger than you can fit through a doorway. So as this is, I could just lay it down, and because it's only 3 inches wide, you know, I just laid it down and carried it right on in, stood it up, stood this side up, you know, use this to bolt the two sides together. So it's easily disassembled, transported, etc. You don't want to go creating something that, you know, maybe you make it in your basement, you go, oh shit, in order to get it out of here, I'm gonna have to cut it. So don't do that. But I wouldn't go necessarily bolting the whole thing together either, because obviously more of it that's welded together, it's gonna be more solid. For bolts, I think these are 3/4 inch thick, length about 5 inches. They are hardened. They probably don't need to be hardened, but I opted for hardened, you know, bolts. I used lock nuts. Not that this thing's vibrating or the nut should come loose, but I figured why not throw lock nuts on there? That way it's just never gonna loosen up. Hole spacing, right? These holes are 2 inches from center to center, right? So feel free to make all the holes you want. I don't really like when the racks have holes everywhere and it basically looks like Swiss cheese. Why would I want to go taking all that steel out of the rack? I'm paying for material. I'm only putting holes so that I can put the J cups and the safeties. Now, standard J cups will come with a 1 inch, okay, peg on them. So what they tell you to use it for a size hole is 1 1/16. So that'll allow it to, you know, not fit too snug so that it's difficult to get it in or out. It won't have to be this, like, you know, perfectly precise fit. It should give you enough room to just put it in, take it out. So 1 1/16 hole, 1 inch diameter peg. Now these I purchased from Sorinex. They're pretty beefy. I was waiting for these and they took a while to arrive. So in the meantime, I kind of just eyed them up online and made a pair because I, you know, was anxious to get started. Obviously I didn't make these. These I purchased from Sorinex. The bar I purchased from Texas Power Bars. I think they're some of the absolute best bars on the market. They're made in the USA in the great state of Texas, and I absolutely love them. I've been training on them for the last, going on 20 years. I think they're a tremendous value for what they cost. I don't think you're gonna find a better bar. But again, back to the rack. For the safeties, I just used 1 inch steel rod, just welded a perpendicular piece to it. If you wanna know the length of the safety itself, let me pull it out here. Yeah, 53 inches. So that allows it basically to fit through and hang out the back 3.5 inches. For steel, this is cold rolled steel. There's cold and there's hot rolled. I think in terms of weldability, they're both the same. Again, don't quote me. I'm not a professional at this, but just telling you what I used. Cold rolled, 3x3, 3/16 thickness. What other measurements have we got here? In terms of this cross piece, it is 3 inches off the ground. You could set it to whatever height you want. That just looked like a good place for me. I don't want to put it, you don't want to put it up too high if you were to deadlift in the rack, which I always deadlift outside of it anyways, but if you were to deadlift inside it, certainly you don't want the bar hitting before the plates touch the ground. Although, I guess if I was deadlifting with quarters, it might happen, but I don't deadlift with quarters anyways. The finish on it, if you want to know what I did, I just kind of wanted this like raw steel, you know, kind of scuffed up look. They make stripping discs. I used a right angle grinder and used a 4.5 inch disc on it. They'll basically take the mill scale off. You know, when you buy steel, it comes with kind of like this coating on it. And, you know, to make it shiny, you would have to strip it off. So stripping discs, you could use flap wheels, flap discs. They look like stacked sandpaper. You could use that. I found the stripping discs to work much quicker and much more effectively. One thing I want to go over is holes. Now, very, very important. The way I did this was I'm lucky to have access to a milling machine. My father just happens to be in the business. So I was able to use a machine and kind of, use a digital readout. And that guaranteed me, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches from center to center. I was able to just kind of go right down the line, drill the holes. And this was actually very time consuming. If you have access to a drill press or a milling machine, you could certainly do it yourself. Sure, you could buy, the square tubing already perforated, or, you could specify maybe to the people you're buying the steel from, they probably would be willing to do it. If not, any machine shop, I'm sure, could do it. But very important that they're all, first of all, centered, but then the same distance, because these holes start, I think, 24 inches. Yes, it's 24 inches to the center of the first hole, all right? Now, if that's 24 inches to the center there, but this one is, 24 and a half, good luck getting your safety in, because the two holes aren't going to line up front to back, and you're going to be screwed. So very important that you start at the exact same point, front to back, side to side, and continue right up the line, exactly spaced the same, because otherwise, like I said, you're not going to get this safety in, because the holes aren't going to line up. These plates that you see here, which are, again, 3 inches wide, and I used, went 7 inches long, which would allow me 2 inches of overlap so that I could put the bolt, whether it's this bolt here or the bolts that I use to anchor. Up here, these are 3/4 inch diameter, and these here are 1/2 inch diameter. The thickness of this plate is 1/4 inch. I don't think it's really necessary to go with anything thicker. 1/4 inch was heavy enough. I mean, you probably, for the floor ones, you could maybe go a little thicker, but honestly, man, I put all my strength into this thing, and it barely budges. It's solid. If we were making a list of material that you would need for this job, for the 3x3 square tubing, you would need 4 pieces that are 84 inches or 7 feet long, right? For the 4 uprights, 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these, right, are 42 inches, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces are all 42 inches long. But this rack, right, front to back is 48 inches on the dot. Side to side, right, width is 48 and a half, because of the 1/4 inch plates. Kick it out another 1/2 inch. And that's the material for the rack in terms of the list of steel that you would need. Unless, of course, you're going to make your own J-cups. I probably would recommend, maybe from a safety standpoint, unless you're really confident in yourself, maybe just buy a pair. Even with this rack, right? Say you're squatting and you put, I don't know, 4 or 5, let's say you're a big squatter, you put 6 plates aside, right? What's that? That's just under 600 pounds. But that's distributed between 2 columns. That's really only 300 pounds of downward force on 3x3 square tubing. And if it's thick, I mean, you're not putting really that much load on this rack, even if you move some big weight. But you do want to make sure that the J-cups are plenty strong. Don't screw around with that. Obviously, safety first. That's really about it. I hope you found this a little bit helpful. Now, maybe you don't, if you're someone who has your own equipment, you've got a chop saw, you've got a drill press, you've got a welder, you're in business. If you don't, I bet you somebody does have that stuff and would either let you use it if you're so inclined to take a stab at it, or would help you do it. Or you could purely pay a fabricator to do it for you, and maybe they wouldn't kill you too bad on the price. But having the dimensions already and everything laid out, and someone doesn't have to sit there and actually think it out and engineer it, that should take a little bit out of it. Anyways, that's about it. If you're so inclined to do it, take a stab at it. It's an awesome thing to be able to, do it and say, hey, shit, I made that. And obviously it's awesome to have your own stuff, because no matter what happens out in the world, you're independent. That's a good feeling. So everyone watching, thank you for watching. I hope everyone's staying safe. I hope everyone's staying healthy. And I guess that's about it. I'll talk to you guys soon.